All right, so you've acquired some Bitcoin and you don't want to be Mt. Goxed or have whatever exchange or however you acquired it, get hacked or whatever the case may be. So critically, you need and want to secure your Bitcoin, and that is what this video, part 6, is all about. Let's jump in. All right, so as we alluded to earlier in the series, there's a number of different wallets, right? There's hot wallets, and there's a number of different subcategories within this. So a hot wallet is really any kind of Bitcoin wallet that is inherently connected to the internet. And, keep in mind that wallets in exchanges meet that criteria. The only difference is it's not your wallet, right? It's the exchange's wallet. But you also have other desktop applications. So things like Sparrow Wallet, Wasabi Wallet, Spectre Wallet, and many others that you can download on any computer. And while that wallet is still connected to the internet, at least it is in your own control. They are now your keys, your private keys. And then the other category of wallets are cold wallets, or what is typically hardware wallet, although there are some cold wallets that are not necessarily hardware based. But for purposes of this video, we will consider a hardware wallet and cold wallet sort of synonymous. And these are literally physical devices where your private keys are stored in what's called a secure element. And so some examples of that include things like the Ledger. This is a Ledger Nano S. You also have well-known brands like the Coldcard, as well as newer sort of devices like Foundation Devices Passport. And there's also other well-known brands like Trezor. Now, what all of those devices have in common is that your private keys never leave the device. That's the key, right? And as we've discussed in this whole series, in order to spend funds from a wallet, you need the private keys associated with those funds. Now, there's a few differences across the different devices to be aware of. One is whether their kind of firmware is fully open source. And so something like the Foundation Devices Passport that I just showed is fully open source. The reason this is good is that people can be reviewing the code, and you're much more likely to spot issues, and bugs, and be able to patch fixes, etc. And so this is the kind of, part of the legacy that Trezor established that has kind of continued in some of these newer models. There's a difference between fully free and open source versus open source, but having limitations around commercial use of the software. And so there was some big drama recently where Foundation Devices Passport forked some of the code in the Coldcard, but that's a story for a completely other day. The point is, there is merit to finding a device that has open source, at least readable code. And so for that, I would recommend the Coldcard or the Foundation Devices Passport. I think the Trezor is also a fine option. But it's worth noting that out of all those options, I actually think Ledger is the easiest to use. And indeed, what I might recommend if you're like, look, I want to do my best, I want to follow these best practices, but I want to do baby steps, something like the Ledger Nano, either the S or X, could be a good starter option for you to at least get your coins off the exchange. Again, that is better than doing nothing. The downside with the Ledger is that the software you use as an interface to the device, which is called Ledger Live, is closed source. So that does have its downsides. And it also goes back to the kind of Bitcoin ethos that we were discussing earlier in the context of exchanges. Ledger is a multi-coin device. And so just keep in mind that means there's less attention being spent on ensuring Bitcoin is always going to be secure, etc. I'm not saying there's any kind of security vulnerabilities in Ledger, but it is a good practice to kind of keep that in mind. Now, the final related point that I think is worth mentioning is that some of these devices, i.e. the Ledger, have their own interface that you would be able to open up on your computer in order to do things like generate receive addresses. So you want to send some funds to that cold hardware wallet, you can do that through this interface. If you want to send funds to someone else, this interface would also allow you to paste in or perhaps read a QR code of that address that you wish to send to. So something like Ledger has its own interface called Ledger Live where you can do all of that. The other devices I just showed you, including the Coldcard and Foundation Devices Passport, don't actually have that. And so what you would do is actually associate the hardware wallet with one of the desktop wallets I was talking about earlier. And it doesn't just have to be a desktop wallet. It can be a mobile wallet like Blue Wallet, which is a very, very nice option for mobile that has support for both Bitcoin, regular Bitcoin wallets, Lightning wallets, and you can also sort of import a read-only version of that hardware wallet. And so I've done a number of tutorials. There's all sorts of combinations, right? Like, you know, for example, Wasabi supports both Coldcard and Foundation devices, as does Sparrow Wallet, as does Spectre Wallet. So all of these kind of well-known desktop wallets are going to support or have wide support for the main types of hardware wallets. Now, in these videos, I want to give you prescriptive, suggestions and not just kind of rattle off a number of different options and kind of leave you to wrestle with what to do. Obviously, I want you to make your own decision. But if you ask me for, well, Ian, like, what would your recommendation be? It would be the following. I would say absolutely get a desktop wallet like Sparrow. Sparrow, I think at this point, is probably my favorite, although we do have Wasabi Wallet 2.0 that is coming out soon. But if you force me to, make a pick, I would say something like Sparrow Wallet is very, very good because it is pretty well designed and it has a lot of additional functionality that you can engage with if you so desire. But I would say step one, get Sparrow Wallet. Step two, get your funds off an exchange like immediately. Do that as quickly as you can. And this is free to do, right? You just go to my tutorial and follow the instructions. And then in parallel, you can get one of these hardware wallets. I would say for funds of any significant size, like you probably want to store that on a hardware wallet, but don't let the necessity of getting a hardware wallet stop you from getting your coins off the exchange in the first place. That's the very first thing that you want to do. So there you go. Again, my sort of setup these days is largely the Sparrow Wallet and the Foundation Devices Passport, but you can't go wrong with the Coldcard, which is an absolute classic, as well as I think Trezor, is good as well. So you've now acquired Bitcoin, you've now secured it and taken custody of your own keys. You are a true Bitcoin citizen. But now let's talk about some of the ways you can actually use your Bitcoin. I'll see you in the next video.